Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel, and today I am back bringing you guys yet another book review from the original 62 line of Goosebumps books. And today I'm going to be reviewing book number 9, Welcome to Camp Nightmare. This is going to be a controversial review for a lot of you guys, I know, because this is a fan favorite book in the franchise. Most people in the community in Goosebumps love this book, have mostly nothing but praises for it. And I am one of the rare anomalies where I think the book is just okay. I don't think it's horrible, but I do not think it was as good as people say it is. For as hyped up as it was, I was kind of left a little disappointed with it, if I'm being honest with you. And I'll get into my thoughts on that later on, of course. But first of all, what is the book about for those of you guys who have not read or watched the episode, because it's basically the same plot. So, Welcome to Camp Nightmare follows a kid named Billy Harlan, and he is going to this place called Camp Night Moon for like a summer camp that his parents sent him to. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on at this camp. Very early on, even on the bus ride down, there's this weird occurrence where the bus driver just randomly stops in the middle of nowhere, drops all them off, chucks their bags off the bus, and they're all weirded out by this, and there's some kind of weird encounter in the forest with a certain creature that we'll get into more later. And after this encounter, they are introduced to Uncle Al, who is the main counselor and like kind of head camp director of Camp Night Moon. And he introduces himself to them and starts taking them over to Camp Night Moon. And on the way there, Billy ends up meeting a bunch of the other kids. There's a kid named Mike. I think his name is Roger. I can't remember all the characters' names off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've read the book. But he also ends up meeting a girl. And they kind of all hit it off. They kind of start becoming friends. And upon arriving at Camp Night Moon, the boys and girls are split off to two separate sides of the camp. And upon arriving at the boys' camp, Billy starts noticing some weird stuff happening. Mainly in the fact that at the beginning, when getting their cabin, they notice that there is a snake on Mike's bed, and Mike ends up getting bitten by the snake. And so they have to kind of take the snake out, and that's when we meet Larry, who is one of the main counselors of the camp. And Larry's just a jerk. He's a big jerk in the book and in the episode. And, you know, he's not really listening to them. He doesn't really seem to care that much about the kids or what happens to them. And as time goes on, Billy starts noticing that some of the campers have started to disappear in various ways, starting with Mike after the snake bite. And these disappearances, when he brings them up to Uncle Al or Larry, they both deny that there was ever a kid at this camp named with that certain name. And Billy gets weirded out. There's another thing at this camp called the Forbidden Bunk that they're not allowed to go into. And there is an urban legend around the camp of this creature named Saber, who's roaming around the camp and, you know, is kind of this vicious beast. And as the events of the story go on, more kids start disappearing, and Billy decides, you know, he's had enough and decides to get to the bottom of what's happening at Camp Night Moon. So that's the general storyline of Welcome to Camp Nightmare. I don't want to get too deep into it for, like, some of you guys who haven't read it, even though I will say, when I get to it, I'm going to say the ending, so, you know, if you have not read the book and don't want the ending spoiled, go pause the video, go read the book, and then come back, and then you can finish watching, because again, later on I will end up telling you what the ending is, because I have some thoughts on it. But overall, I think the book is fine. As I mentioned before, it's nothing horrible. It's definitely not on the same level as some of the really bad books I've read so far. But there are some things that draw it back for me, one of which is the pacing. In my opinion, it's just a little bit too slow-paced. And I get that's kind of the point of it, that it's kind of this psychological thriller, that's kind of mystery that's going around the camp, and this kind of build-up and stuff. I understand that. And I think for some people who like that kind of stuff, again, I think you're really going to enjoy it. I know a lot of people do. It's just not really my kind of Goosebumps book. It's not really a kind of horror subgenre that really appeals to me all that much. So it's just kind of a bias thing that I'm just not a big fan of that idea. But again, my opinion on it is just my opinion, and I think a lot of you guys who read this book will really like it because, again, it's one of the most beloved books in the community. But talking about positives first, I guess I kind of went to a little bit of negatives, but I'll give some positives first. Billy is one of easily best Goosebumps protagonists out there. He is very well written, he's likable, he is very determined. He's not someone who just kind of sits by the sidelines while all this stuff is happening. He takes action. He actually starts investigating why these kids are vanishing. He stands up to Uncle Al and Larry when things go weird and when they're denying him. He is a great protagonist, and he is really one of the most... He's just easily very compelling to read. And, yeah, I think he's easily the biggest strength of the book. Side characters are okay. Nothing too special about them. I also love Uncle Al and Larry. Even though Larry is a complete douchebag throughout this whole book, he is still kind of... I don't know how to describe him, really. He's very entertaining to read, and especially when in the episode, which, again, I'll get to when I go to that review, but in the episode especially, Larry is very entertaining. And Uncle Al, I really like him. He has this kind of friendly demeanor, but at the same time, this kind of underlying sinisterness to him, and I think that just really adds to the overall characterization of him. It makes him more mysterious, makes him very creepy while also very endearing, and again, just showing how the friendliness of him is almost like a facade and kind of showing his truer, darker natures underneath. At least that's kind of how I interpreted it. But that also ties into the twist ending. And I think the camp atmosphere is also really good in this book. It has a lot of great creepy moments in it that really are effective. I think the looming presence of Saber is really cool. And yeah, I think some of that stuff is very well done. But that doesn't hold it back from some negatives I have, which mainly is the fact that it's very slow-paced. It's a slow Goosebumps book. It's a very gradual build-up, which again, I can understand if some people really like that, because there are some people who do really like those kind of slow-building, psychological kind of stories, and this is very much like a psychological thriller in Goosebumps. But for me, it just does not work. You know, I'm not a huge fan of these, as I mentioned before, not a huge psychological thriller fan. I'm not a big fan of, like, the build-up and kind of just... There's not really a big monster threat in this story. Like, yeah, there's Saber, but he barely shows up in the book. He's kind of more of a background threat that's kind of just there. You never really see him until the end, and that kind of plays into the twist ending, which I might as well get to now, because that is my biggest sin on the book. I know it's an iconic twist ending, a lot of people love it, but in my opinion, it sucks. It's just one of those twist endings that comes absolutely right out of nowhere. There's barely any hints or build up towards it late in the early parts of the book. It feels like Stein just kind of randomly came up with this twist ending without really any thought and just like, oh, this would be cool, put it in, and again, to me, it doesn't really work. And for those of you who are wondering what the twist ending is, obviously if you've read the book, you know it. If you don't know the twist ending and you haven't read the book first and come back to this review afterwards. But the basic twist ending is that this whole camp situation was a military training site for Billy, whose parents are going on a dangerous mission, and they want Billy along with them because the parents are both scientists. And yeah, they want Billy to come along with them on a very dangerous expedition to Earth. So, everyone in the camp are aliens. This is a twist that Stein uses a few times later on in the series as well, and it doesn't work. It's just very cringy and stupid in my opinion. And again, to each their own. If you love the twist, good on you. I'm not judging you if you love the twist, or if you love this book. The twist is just not for me. And I think, it just feels like something that Stein just added very last minute, just as a final, like, ha, gotcha moment in the book. And it just doesn't work for me. I'm not a fan. But that's really all I gotta say about this book. It's nothing too special in my opinion. I think I still gave it around like a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's horrible. There's still a lot of good moments in it. Again, as I mentioned, it has some great atmosphere, a great protagonist, some great side characters in terms of like the camp counselors. Again, side kid characters, very forgettable, kind of bland, not very interesting. But some of the negatives, like the twist ending, detracts a lot more points than it really needed to, but it just doesn't work, and it brings the whole story down, in my opinion, because that's the last note you're left on. And I just think it's a little bit too slow-paced for my liking. So yeah, 6 out of 10. I think the book is okay. It's definitely not one of my favorites, but it's not one of my least favorites either. Again, I feel like give the book a chance though if you have not read it yet, because I feel like a lot more people will like it than I did. Again, it's just my personal taste of Goosebumps books. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about Welcome to Camp Nightmare. So I want to thank you guys all for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and leave a comment on what your thoughts are on Welcome to Camp Nightmare. If you agree, disagree, whatever, just comment down below. But please be respectful about your opinions. But that's all I got for you guys today. So I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a scary day.